Welcome to Transformation with Martinet. Martinet Emmons is a transformational life coach who broke free from childhood abuse, sexual trauma, and overcame cancer to become a powerful force of healing and hope for others. Martinet describes traumatic events as fierce emotional tsunamis. They can leave impending doom and destructive tidal waves of emotions that hit you when you least expect it. Martinet helps her clients dive into the depths of their trauma and pain as she stands fiercely advocating for them to shine a light on those experiences and find the lesson in the pain. She serves as a beacon of hope that guides you to see the strength, lessons, and purpose that can be born from the pain. You can feel alive with purpose again when you awaken your dormant strength, step into your power with a sense of peace, and discover a new wave of hope with the right tools and support. Martinet and her guests are here shining their lights today through empowering stories of hardship and transformation to inspire you to find hope and to see that there is a beautiful blue ocean of serenity, happiness, and fulfillment in your future. Transformation with Martinet starts now.
Welcome, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. Welcome to Transformation with Martinet, where we overcome everything and compromise nothing. I'm so excited to be here today. For those of you who don't know, my show is about hope. And the guests that I invite on this show all have a story of overcoming and transformation and living their best lives now. And also, for those of you who don't know, my show is every Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. And without further ado, I want to introduce my very special guest today. Oh boy, emotions coming on me real quick here because damn, she's been through a lot. Welcome, Vernita. Bo, please introduce yourself a little better than me while I collect myself here.
Thank you, Martinet. It is a delight to be here today to share my story. Again, my name is Vernita Bo. I am a motivational speaker. I love talking. That's one of my best gifts. I am a Christian life coach and a licensed minister, but more importantly, I am a mother and a grandmother, and I love doing those two things.
Oh, that's wonderful. It's so wonderful. So tell us a little bit about your story. It started, well, actually, what I would say first is that when in your speaking and your coaching, you want to help others see the other side of pain. And I fully get you. I know what that's like. So do you want to start out your story telling us about your son and the accident?
Sure. So it was June of 2018. June 14th of 2018, I was in the process of selling my home. And it was empty. Everything was out. The sign was in the yard. It was getting ready to go for it. And I talked to my son that night, as I normally do, around 7 o'clock. And at that time, I was staying with my daughter because there was no furniture in my house. So about 11 o'clock, when I was getting ready to go to bed, the phone rings and there's a police officer on the other end, and he says, "Are you the mother of Byron Slade?" And I said, "Yes, I am." He says, "I don't want to alarm you, but your son has been in an accident. We're flying him to Baptist Hospital to be put in the trauma unit, and we'd like for you to meet us there." They couldn't even think straight. Couldn't ask another question, just click, getting ready to go. And I called his dad, and his dad said that he had just got a call. He said, "Don't try to drive. I'll come through and pick you up." And he did. He came through and he picked me up, and we went there and we sat in the waiting room for, I know, what felt like 4 hours or better, but it was only 30 minutes. But every minute, every second, all kinds of things were going through my mind. Like, you have the what ifs, you have the how is it, you have the how bad is it, all of those things are going through your mind. And all I could do was whisper a prayer and just say, "God, I don't know what to expect when I go in the back, God, but I know I need you. And I need you to be with me and with my son and with all of us during this time, God. I don't know what's going on because it was taking so long for them to let us back. So when I finally get to the back, he's hooked up to all kinds of things. But the one thing that I remember that he was hooked up to was life support. And when I saw that, it was like I melted, like just became a smaller version of myself because I couldn't understand what was happening at this moment. And his vitals were good. He was warm to touch. Everything was great. And so the doctors wouldn't really say anything. They said, we're still running tests. We're still running tests. So I just sat there and I held his hand and I rubbed it and I rubbed it. And let me say that this was June the 14th. My birthday is June the 18th. So he and I had already talked about what we were going to do for my birthday. Mm-hmm. And so I rubbed his hand, and I talked to him and I sang to him. And I know he was laughing inside because I can't sing. And I sang to him and I talked to him and I just, just prayed with him and just sat there. I couldn't leave. And then they moved him to a room. And I told my ex, I said, you need to go get his brother and sister. They need to be here. And I called my sisters. I have 3 sisters and told them what happened. And the next day, I stayed there all night. I didn't go anywhere. The next day, the doctor came in. He said, we're going to run one more test. And everybody was in the room at that time. And he said, this will be the test to let us know what the outcome is. And they ran that test. And then he turned around and he looked at me. He said, I'm sorry, Miss Bo. He said, your Byron is gone. And I lost it. I didn't know. And he said he had a traumatic brain injury. His brain had disconnected from the stem. And there's no coming back from that. So he was brain dead. And if you think about everything, not being able to see him get married, not being able to hear him call you every day, not being able to go see him, go pick him up, go out to eat, just not being able to see him fulfill everything else that he thought he was going to fulfill in life. But then you think about that he was a Christian. And you think about how God is welcoming him home. And you think about how he has no more troubles in his life. And you think about all of those things and all those you are torn up on the outside. On the inside, you are rejoicing because he's made it home. Yeah. It was a very hard time. It was a very, very, very hard time, but I can talk about it now. Yeah. There was a time when I couldn't even talk about it. I didn't want to hear anybody else talk about it. And I can share and I can let others know that, we were told that we were born to die. And life happens to all of us. And at that moment that it happens, you have a decision to make. You can decide whether you're going to stay stuck in depression, despair, and grief, or whether you're going to rise above it all, have a mindset shift, and use what you've been through to help and to bless others, and to live an abundant life. There is life on the other side of grief. Mm-hmm. I'm a witness. And it's a beautiful life if you choose to embrace it. But you got to embrace it.
That right there, I have lost a lot of people in my life, mom, siblings, and others. I can't imagine losing a child though. I cannot imagine. And it reminds me of when my brother was diagnosed with cancer at 17. And my mom, I wasn't there to witness this, but she told me that like one night she woke up, and she wasn't sleeping much then anyway, but she woke up and she's like just in this absolute like panic. And she had gone downstairs to talk to my dad, and he's like, well, maybe you need counseling. I don't know what to do for you. He wasn't very helpful. And then she went back upstairs, and she's like, okay, God, if you're going to take him, you're going to have to get me through this. And then things shifted for her. And that breaks my heart thinking about that too, because he isn't around anymore. It's as hard as that was, my brother and my mother and my sister, and I can't imagine a child. I just can't imagine.
It's just so out of order. You know, my children are supposed to bury me. I'm not supposed to bury my children. Mm-hmm. And it was just so hard. But nobody knew the trauma that I was going through, because even when his goddad preached the funeral, he stood up and he said, his first words were, Vernita, I want to thank you for your strength, because it's because of your strength that we've all been able to make it. So I looked strong on the outside, but on the inside, I was a straight up mess. Yeah. And I don't really think that I really embraced the grief till maybe a few weeks later. And that's one thing that I want to say, that when you lose anything, when you lose a job, when you lose someone you love, whatever it is your loss is, rest in that grief. Let that grief happen, because it's going to happen. Go ahead and rest in it. Let those emotions come. Be depressed if you must. Just don't decide to live there. Right. And embrace your community. It's very, very important to embrace your community. Whomever it is, embrace it, so that they will know to check on you. So they will know to see if you're okay. Because if you're trying to go through this thing alone, you're not going to make it. It's so, so very hard. And I had God and I had my community. And those were the two things that helped me make it through this.
Yeah. And let your community help you. You know, us as women, we are this picture of strength. We just keep going. You know, remember my sister-in-law telling me a long time ago, and she was in some really deep stuff at the time. And she said she would appear very strong as well, but then she'd take these long drives and just cry.
Yeah, that was it.
She had to let it out, you know, and she did, thank goodness. You know, I feel like a lot of emotions, at least for me and the clients that I serve, it's like, we need to sit in that. We need to learn from it. But like you said, you don't stay in it. You know, Les Brown and Maya Angelou, they both say something that's very similar. Like, tragedies may happen and you may park, but you're going to eventually have to get it back into drive and go. You can't stay there. So you did feel your emotions. You did deal with what was going on. And then you decided to move forward. What was there a turn? We're going to go to break in a moment, but what was your turning point to say, okay, I need to make another decision. I need to choose to do something else?
Well, Martine, I have two other children. So I couldn't allow myself to be there.
Right.
You know, I had to be there for them, because this was my oldest son. This was their best friend. So they just lost their sibling and best friend. So I had to be there for them too. So I had to do what I had to do. As hard as it was, I had to do it. But the turning point for me was helping others, was being able to go to a classmate whose son died of the same thing that mine died with, and let her know I was there for her, not 3 weeks after my son died, and attending the funeral. Being able to go to a classmate, a co-worker, whose son died maybe a month and a half after my son died, and letting her know that I was there for her, and attending that funeral and really being there for her, being really present for them and just helping others and serving others. That's how I got over it. I decided that I was not going to let this beat me, that I was going to beat it. You know, grief is going to come until we leave this earth. We're going to grieve something, but you gotta be willing to want to not live in that space.
Right. And we're going to take a break now, and we should talk a little bit more about that, about getting, as I say, and what I've been taught in my community of coaches and colleagues is like, you get these lessons wrapped in sandpaper, and they're not fun to unwrap. They're not beautiful in the least bit. But if we can take the time to learn, life can be beautiful, as you're finding out. Right.
Exactly. It can be.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to take a break, and we'll talk more about Vernita and what she does. Thank you, everyone. Welcome back, everyone, to Transformation with Martinet. This is where we overcome everything and compromise nothing. My guest today is Vernita Bowe, and we've been talking about her son, a tragic car accident, and lessons that she's learned from this accident. So, Vernita, you've learned basically to sit in feelings, sit in trauma, sit in, well, a life that's had actually a lot of trauma, and find those, like we talked about before we left on break, of those sandpaper wrap gifts. You've learned to thrive and help others with that. Did this come, like, what I mean is this. I've had a lot of trauma in my life as well. When I got diagnosed with cancer myself, I thought, all right, no more fooling around here. I need to do something, and I need to step into my purpose, what God gave me to do. And I knew it was to help and serve others. Was this your catalyst, or were there other things before that?
So there were other things after that.
Oh,
yes. So much has happened, but the thing that really had me to step out in faith and step out on my purpose was in 2020 when COVID hit.
Yes.
And we were caregivers for my dad. My mom had passed in October 2019, and we were both their caregivers, my sisters and I. And my baby sister contracted COVID, but we don't know where she got it from. But it spread throughout the family. And my dad ultimately got it. We didn't know he had it. I lived in North Carolina, they lived in Virginia. So they called me one day and they said, we need you to come check out Dad. He's not acting right. So I got there. We sat on the porch. He had his favorite porch swing chair that he sit in. And we sat on the porch, and he'd sit in that chair, and he was rocking, and he would talk for about 5 minutes, and then he would doze off to sleep. And he would sleep for about a minute and a half to 2 minutes and wake up and continue the conversation.
Oh, wow.
And then he would doze off to sleep. I told my sisters, I said, I don't think he's getting enough oxygen. I think, if he's not doing any better in the morning, if he's not doing better, you all probably need to take him to the hospital. Well, morning came and he couldn't get up off the bed. He couldn't raise his head up. And thank God he had a brother who listens to the spirit. He kept hearing the spirit say, I need to go check on Wilbert. I need to go check on Wilbert. I need to go check on Wilbert. And he got there, and they were trying to get my dad ready to get him to the hospital, and he helped them get him dressed. Now, God is amazing. I'll tell anybody, my uncle has a heart condition where he has a pacemaker. He's on oxygen. He has a lot of ailments himself, but he did not contract COVID that day. And my dad went to the hospital, and my sister stayed there with him until she couldn't. And they ran the test, and they said he had COVID. And he was put on a ventilator. Well, in the meantime, all of us got sicker and sicker, and I became so sick that my sister had to call 911 for the ambulance to come pick me up. I was barely breathing. I couldn't walk. I couldn't raise my arms. I just wasn't functioning at all. And they got me to the hospital, got me hooked up to all types of machines to try to see what was going on. And my lungs were failing. My kidneys were failing. My heart was barely beating. And I was taking gaps of breath. And they told me, they explained to me that I had COVID. They explained to me that I had pneumonia. They explained to me that I had sepsis. Whole lot of things were going on. They said that your kidneys and your lungs, that everything is shutting down. So we're going to have to put you on a ventilator, and we're going to have to put you in a coma to try to get on top of this. We're going to do the very best we can. But in my mind, I heard, but we really don't have enough evidence to know whether we're going to be able to save you or not. But what the doctor said was, you are very, very, very sick at this point. And we're going to do the best we can to try to keep you here. And before I left on the ambulance, my oldest sister said, Nita, you have to fight. Fight with everything that's within you. Just fight, child, fight.
Yeah.
And that's what I heard in my head when they put me under. That's all. That's the last thing I remember. And I was in that coma-like state for 13 days.
Right.
And on that 13th day, the hand of God touched me, woke me out of that coma. I couldn't talk. I couldn't move. I couldn't raise my hands. Only thing I could do was cry. And tears ran down my cheek. And I could think in my mind, thank you, Jesus. And I just cried. And the nurse, she was holding my hand and she was just rubbing my hand. And I was just so grateful to a loving God for another chance. And it was that moment, the moment when I realized that I was dying and God allowed me to live. It was that moment that everything shifted for me.
Oh, so powerful. So powerful. Did you feel like what it was you were supposed to do? I understand the gratitude, but was there something like, okay, this is it?
Well, no, because I didn't know. I just know that I was kept alive for a reason. I really didn't know. And sometimes you just have to step out there and start doing things and he'll show you the path. So for the first maybe a year and a half, I couldn't do anything because I had to learn how to walk. I had to learn how to talk. I had to learn how to bathe, to feed myself. I had to learn how to do everything all over again because I was not able, like everything was shut down. I couldn't do anything. And so physical therapy, occupational therapy, they were my life for a while, for a moment.
Yeah.
And then I got to the point where I could walk short distances. And then I got to the point where I could walk a little bit further and a little bit further because my lungs were healing as I was doing the exercises and things they were telling me to do.
Yeah.
But once I got to that space where I could actually pick up a computer, because mind you, when I was in the hospital, I couldn't even lift a phone. I couldn't do any of that for a minute. So I got to that space where I could pick up a computer. I just felt like that I was supposed to serve others. I was supposed to help others. I thought about everything that I had been through. My son dying, my other son going to prison, losing all three of my parents in less than a year, me having COVID, my dad dying with COVID when we were both in the hospital together. And he died while I was on the ventilator. Didn't get to say goodbye. Didn't know he was dead, and I said, I gotta help others. I gotta show others that there's life beyond traumatic events. And that's when I decided that's what I was supposed to do. So I started the podcast. And everything has evolved from that.
Was there like a sense of peace? I know there was for me when I'm like, all right, I got the diagnosis. And when I first got it, I was like, I just kind of tuned out, let my husband get the information. I don't want to hear this. But then the next day I got like on the treadmill, very low speed, and surgery was planned, chemo was planned, all that. And I'm like, okay, now's the time. I am going to shift my life. And I felt a peace. I imagine you did too. Like,
Yes.
Mhm.
And it was peace. And that's how you know, like, that's how you know.
Mhm.
And it had to happen that way. It had to happen because without that peace, you can't move beyond what you've been through. So you
Right.
had to have that peace to come over you, that peace that surpasses all understanding. You can't
100%.
explain it, but you
Mhm.
know it's there.
Yeah,
You know you have it.
absolutely. 100%. So you have learned to go through the suffering and absolutely thrive.
I've learned how to suffer.
Yeah.
I have learned how to suffer and how to have joy at the same time.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing?
It is amazing.
I so many of us understand it, but we don't always take the time to really get those lessons in there, because life really is beautiful if you take that time to learn. What am I supposed to learn? What is it? Because I can't remember who says this, but Oprah. She says that in order for us to be a light, or for there to be light, there has to be the darkness.
There has to be the darkness. And
Yeah.
it's in the darkness where we grow. It's in
Mhm.
the dark. It's like fertilizing the soil. It's
Absolutely.
in the darkness where that seed is planted and it begins to
Mhm.
grow. That's where you learn. That's where you discover what it is you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
That's where you get, those hidden gifts and those talents that you have. That's where they start to shine.
Yeah.
And then you grow a little bit, just like a plant, and you grow a little bit more, and you grow a little bit more, and then things start to come to fruition. You said, "Aha, that's it.
Yeah.
This is what I'm supposed to do." And
Mhm.
you're ready at that point to do it because you've shed so much in the darkness. You've shed the feelings of loss. You shed the feelings of being hurt. You shed the feelings of depression. You shed the despair. You shed all of that in the darkness. So now that you've come to the light, you're ready to help others do the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree with that. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back and talk some more wisdom in your story. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you in a few. Welcome back, everyone, to Transformation with Martinet, where we overcome everything and compromise nothing. My guest today is Vernita Bow. And the last bit of discussion that we had and continued into the break was COVID. And Vernita, I've never, ever heard of anybody as bad as yours. And I've heard some bad stories, but not as bad as yours. Was there something else going on besides COVID in there? I know that organs were failing, that kind of thing, but anything else that was like a catalyst to all that horrible trauma?
Well, and they say that people who usually have underlying conditions,
Mhm.
they suffer more when they have COVID, but I
Yeah.
didn't have anything. I was healthy.
Mhm.
I just don't know why it hit me so badly, other than to teach me that that God is in control. You know, there's no other way to explain it. There's just no other way. I mean, it was just so bad. And it happened so quickly. Like
Mhm.
I was fine one day and then the next day I was not. And
Right.
it was just that quickly overnight. It was just like I was just gone. Um, I remember my sisters telling me everybody was at the home house, and I remember my sisters telling me that um, the nurses had called from the hospital when Dad was in the hospital before I went, so that we could
Mhm.
all talk to him. And they told me that they asked me to come, and I said that I'm just too sick. I can't get up and come. I don't remember any of that. I don't remember responding. That was the last time they talked to Dad, and I didn't get to do that. Um, yeah, and I'm a daddy's girl, so that hit kind of hard. I didn't get to say goodbye, and I didn't get to attend the funeral because I'm still in the hospital. And they didn't know when or if I was going to come out of the hospital. They had hope that things were going to turn around, but nobody really knew because I was really, really sick. But God, not but God, only God, because only a God who is as loving and as kind and as sovereign as he is could do the thing that was done to me. Only God.
Right. What a powerful, powerful story. And speaking of powerful story, you went through a lot even in your younger years. We had talked about you being bullied in school. I'm very familiar with that as well. I believe middle school is probably the hardest that we go through in school. High school was a little better for me, but not a whole lot. It seemed like there's always something that, to be picked on about. And you also mentioned being a people pleaser. I'm also very familiar with that. And then divorce after 24 years of marriage. Do you want to talk about your story a bit, growing up and your marriage and subsequent divorce?
Yeah. Sure. So when I was younger, I was very skinny. I mean, really, really skinny. But I had big feet. So my body and my feet didn't match up. And I was bullied a lot in middle school, junior high school. I was bullied, called names, picked on, made to feel less than. And it was just a hard time for me, and I never seemed to fit in. Never. I mean, I felt like a square peg in a round world. Like I was never, like when things were done, even in recess and things, and you play those games and there's a captain to choose who's going to be on their team. Yeah. I was always the last to be picked. I've tried to force my way into friendships and things like that because I didn't really have friends. Just trying to fit in, just wanting to be a part of something. I needed to be needed. And that's a bad thing. And it's okay to be wanted, Martinet, because when you want something, you just desire something, something you desire. But need, that's like life. Like, it's like, I need this for life. I need this to survive. If I don't have this, I'm not going to make it. And I really needed to be needed at that point in my life. And I developed a lot of codependent tendencies and did some things, just to fit in, to be in the crowds and to be among people. I just did things that were not of my character at all, but I didn't want to be singled out. And I took those codependent tendencies and characteristics and traits with me into my adulthood. And I got married, not because I was ready to get married, not because I had prayed about getting married, not because it was the right thing to do, but because I wanted to get married because I needed to be needed. And I knew planning the wedding, I knew all the way to the altar that I was not supposed to be getting married. But I did it anyway because I thought somebody needed me. And I married a man who had his own issues, who had his own brokenness. And both of us had unresolved things that we should have worked on before we got into the marriage, and we didn't. We just jumped right into a marriage. And I forced marriage for 24 years. Forced it. He was who he was, and there was no change in him. I was who I was, and there was no change in me. But because he did it and didn't really want to do it, he was not present, physically or mentally. And I lost so much of myself in that marriage. And I lost so much of myself to that man. And trying to evolve again after 24 years of being beat down and beat up, and not physically, but emotionally, mentally, just torn apart, was a journey inside itself. And the thing that I dislike most about staying in that marriage as long as I did, and not being healed, was that I passed that codependency, those codependent characteristics, onto my children. So we were two people who married broken and raised broken children. But there is a God who can fix all of that. And I can help my children now because I've come through that. And they're doing well. They're thriving, they're doing what they're doing. But I had to also learn too that some of the things that they do, the decisions that they make, they're not of any fault of mine. I'm not to blame. But see, that's something you have to train yourself to learn when you've been codependent all of your life. And when you've been trying to fit in, when I had to learn, Martine, the one thing that I had to learn was I was not born to fit in. I was born to be set apart. And once I learned that, life became a whole lot easier for me. But let me tell you, I went all the way through till I was about 50 some years old before I got it right. But once I got it right, I got it right. I stopped trying to live in a mold that other people had presented for me. I stopped trying to please people without pleasing myself. I stopped trying to do those things that were harmful to me when I thought I was doing something that was good for me. I started listening to the one voice that I should have been listening to, which was the Holy Spirit. I stopped listening to everybody else design and architect the way my life was supposed to be. And I started thriving and I stopped existing. The Bible says that the enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy. And he is really good at it. And he knows where to hit you, and he knows how to get you. And he will hit you with people that you love to try to get you to do things that you know you're not supposed to do, because he's not going to hit you with those things that don't bother you. But the flip side to that is this. Jesus said, I came that you might have life and have it more abundantly. And that's my goal. That's what I'm striving for now. Abundant life. I am living now intentionally. I intentionally don't allow negative situations into my life. I intentionally don't hang around people who are negative all the time. I intentionally put boundaries in my life so that I don't get back into those places and spaces that I've been in, because we all have triggers that will come. And if you're not careful, you will go back to where you've been and find yourself digging your way out again. So I live intentionally now, because I am going to have for the rest of my life an abundant life.
Oh, yes, you are. Absolutely. I love that. And it's like we were talking about before. It's like we have to go through these things to build up. As one of my mentors, Lisa Nichols, says, we have to build our resiliency muscles, our strength muscles, not just the muscles in our body, but a proverbial, we have to do the push-ups. Nobody can do it for us. We have to go through these things. So when we get back, I'd like to touch a little bit more on resiliency, and then continue from there. But first, Vernita, even though it's documented for people watching, where can people find you?
I'm on Facebook as Vernita Bow. I am on Instagram as Vernita Inspires. And my webpage is www.vernitainspires.com.
And yes, she does. We'll be back, everyone, very soon. Thank you so much for listening. Back everyone to Transformation with Martine, where we overcome everything and compromise nothing. Just want to say, please join us every Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern and 10 a.m. Pacific. My guest today is Vernita, and we've been having an awesome conversation about finding purpose in tragedy that happens, because that's where so many of us that are in service, this is where we find it. We have to get into that darkness before we can find the light and really shine our light out to others. And Vernita, you mentioned that you never felt you fit in. I resonate with that. And so many people that I know, I think that those of us that are in service to others have felt that way at one point and another, if not all your life, felt like that. So what would you say to people, especially women? I know that lately, a lot of young women have been coming to me with like, oh my gosh, 20s are so hard. I wouldn't want to go back to 20 for anything. 30s get a lot better and on up. To me, you're finding yourself in your 20s, and sometimes it's so hard. Even my girls that are 21 and 23, 21, and I have a son who's 17. It's a hard time. What would you say to the younger people? Because I know you can relate from your story. And what would you say to people getting older and wanting to find purpose and passion in their lives?
The first thing I want to say is don't give up.
Mm-hmm.
It does happen. And then try your very best to be your true, genuine self.
Mm-hmm.
Don't fall after anybody else's pattern, what they do, or what they think you should be or do. Mm-hmm. Be your true, genuine self, because Martine, we lose so much of ourselves trying to chase others.
Yeah.
Live your life to the fullest, to the best way that you know how, being you. That's how we find our purpose. Mm-hmm. We don't find our purpose because we want to be like Sister Susie or Brother mm-hmm. Joe. We find our purpose when we are being ourselves and doing the best that we can do to live here on this earth. Mm-hmm. It's not easy all the time, and it's not going to be easy for the women in your 20s who are going through and trying to find yourself. Don't try to fit into a mold that someone else has made for you. Mm-hmm. Continue to do those things that you enjoy doing. Those things that bring you joy naturally, those mm-hmm. things that you enjoy doing, whether it's helping others or drawing or painting or whatever it is. If you just enjoy being a taxi mom, whatever it is you enjoy doing, continue doing those things that you enjoy doing and watch God work. Mm-hmm. God works. God preordained us. He knows what we're going to be and what we're going to do even before we do it. Mm-hmm. But he also knows that he made each one of us beautifully and wonderfully and different. Yeah. But he made us all good. So you don't have to try to be somebody else. Just be your true, authentic, genuine self and let God do the work on building you and showing you your purpose.
That's really beautiful. And I love what you're saying about even just, finding, recently I started making cards. I love it. I used to be a major scrapbooker, and I've got like a whole bunch of stuff, to use. And I thought, I'm going to start making cards. And that really gives me a lot of fulfillment and fun. And I was encouraging my oldest the other day. She's just kind of wavering. She goes, all I've done is hair. She does hair. And she goes, I don't know if there's something else out there. And I said, just play with it. Play with what you love, whether it's drawing, whether it's, like you were saying, coloring, or, whatever it is, do that. Spend some time in nature. And these ideas will start flowing.
Yeah, they will. And they always do. And that's ultimately how I really found what I was supposed to do. I just started playing with stuff. I didn't really know what it was. I said, is it this? Well, I'm just going to try this for a little while and see if it's this. I remember Joyce Meyer one time said that she was trying to find out what it is she was supposed to be doing. And she wanted to sew like her neighbor. She was going to sew, and she was going to make this outfit for her husband, shirt for her husband, and she was going to sew. Well, lo and behold, that did not work for her. It did not work for her. That was not what she was supposed to do. She stopped trying to be like other folks and started trying to be the person that God called her to be. And that's what we have to do. You know, we like I said, we were made unique. Mm-hmm. And unique means there's not one of us on this earth that's like the other. We are all different, every last one of us. But it also means that because we're different, we can come together and make a beautiful thing, because all of us have different gifts and talents. And when you put them together and work together, something beautiful emerges.
I agree. I even know, like, I hated my name. I thought, oh my God, why couldn't I? Because I even named my kids Sarah, Lindsay, Christopher, very easy, common names, because I didn't want them made fun of. And now I embrace my name. It's like, hey, this is cool. I actually think it's pretty now. Whereas I didn't want somebody, talking about calling me Martini, or, what were your parents doing when they made you? All these stupid, silly jokes. I hated it. And now being unique is very cool. But we have to reach that point in our life where we embrace that. And that's past the 20s, in my opinion.
And it is, because in the 20s, you're still trying to find yourself.
Yeah.
You know, you still need your parents. You still need, your parents to help guide you at sometimes throughout that journey. But it is a journey. Life is a journey, not a destination.
Yeah.
And so we get on this journey called life, and we learn along the way. Mm-hmm. That's why everything you go through, everything that happens, try to find the beauty in it. There is some. Mm-hmm. I don't care how devastating you think it may be. There's some beauty. Mm-hmm. And try to find the beauty in it, learn from it, grow from it, and grow and become that person who enjoys life, even amongst tragedy, even when trauma happens. You can find joy if you just know God's promises, that his promises are true, and know that life happens. I mean, really know that life happens. We're going to have trials and tribulations. Mm-hmm. We were born into a dark world. We were born into sin. So we're going to struggle while we're here on this earth, but we're not doing it alone.
No.
We have God. We have our community, and we can do this thing. And it can happen for you. I mean, I haven't always been this bubbly person that I am today. I haven't always, I've had my struggles. I've had my disappointments. I've had my trials. I've had my losses. But I have learned how to live on the other side of trauma. And that's what I want for you. I want you to know that it's possible. And I want you to know that you can do it. And I know you can, and I believe you can, and I want to help you get there.
Yes, that's wonderful. You're a very beautiful inspiration, Vernita. Absolutely beautiful inspiration. We have 1 minute left in the show. What would you say to someone who, say you're at the coffee shop or something, and someone just asks you, what is my first step? We just have a minute left, but what is my first step? Embrace what you're going through. Mm-hmm.
You got to embrace it. And because if you can't own it, you can't get delivered from it. So you have to own it. And then tell someone that you want help. Right. Acknowledge that you need it, then get the help, seek the help. That's how you're going to get out of this thing. You got to acknowledge it, and then you got to seek.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. So 30 seconds, where can people find you again?
Vernita Bow, Facebook, Vernita Inspires, Instagram, and www.vernitainspires.com is my webpage.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the show today, Vernita. It's an absolute pleasure to have you, and keep inspiring, as I know you will.
Thank you, Martinet. It was a pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining us. We'll see you next Friday.
Thank you for listening to Transformation with Martinet. Did listening today spark a sense of hope and possibility? Hold on to this feeling and tune in every second and fourth Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific for more inspiring conversations with Martinet and her guests. They will show you there is hope, and you are right where you need to be. Martinet is dedicated to supporting you right where you are while launching you towards promise, passion, and possibility that leads to the fulfilled life your heart aches for. If you're tired of being stuck, schedule a complimentary consultation with Martinet and get on the exciting path towards the life you want to be living. Visit martinetemmons.com and make your appointment today.